propagandists and detractors can't change the direction of the wind.
We have come out with a lot of write-ups. We have come out with a lot of artistic display for the use of social media. We are all enjoying them. All in our bid to propagate the intrinsic values of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which we earlier promised, so that people at the grassroots level will know who we are really discussing. Our style is different. What we aim at is the card-carrying members who are not in any political party, who could change their mind anytime, depends on persuasive or aggressive approach by any political party. These are the people we are aiming at, and we are getting them. Within this class of people, anybody can talk to them, and anybody can win their hearts. So in our bid to get all of this done, we have to continue to work, and we have to work hard, and we don't have to stop our research. But so far, we are still operating within the scope of our focus. That is to bring together as many Nigerians as possible who strongly believe in the leadership of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to join us in propagating his values.
The combination of Asiwaju and Shettima is a unique quality of leadership.
Asiwaju Bola Ahmed has never been pushed by his problems, but is led by his dreams.
Nationwide movement for Asiwaju presidency, Nmap, is the conglomeration of expert grassroots mobilizers who have volunteered to mobilize grassroots support for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu for the purpose of facilitating his emergence as the next president of Nigeria in 2023. Looking at Asiwaju's political and social antecedents, Nmap is absolutely convinced that he is not only a marketable candidate, but also endowed with all it takes to lead Nigeria. Certainly, if voted in, he will do a good job. As a result, many Nigerians are saying that we should try him and prove him. Of course, the combination of Asiwaju and Shettima depicts two good heads. That notwithstanding, we do not want to take the grassroots for granted. So, Nmap is to Asiwaju what good marketers and salesmen are to do.
Laying a firm foundation with the bricks others have thrown at him.
Are these political tacticians in search of a better Nigeria or a gullible and politically hoodwinked president? Nigeria will need experienced citizen of the world, one who had demonstrated global exposure and vision. And Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not found wanting in this area.
Successful people make mistakes, learn from them, and don't quit.
Speaking on the current situation in the country, the Ekeri Olubadan of Ibadan land, Amidu Ajibade, says he is not in support of the agitation for Yoruba nation.
Emi o support Yoruba nation pé ká máa káwá jagun.
No.
Ṣé mo fẹ́ káwọn ọmọ tèmi sí? Ṣọ́gun ṣe ń tọ́jú àwa dàbí àmàlà àti gbẹ̀gìrì. Ó ń ṣàmàlà àtọ̀bẹ̀ ewédú o.
He, however, called on all true sons and daughters of Oodua to support their own so that power can come back to the southwest region. Similarly, some residents of Ibadan have said that the APC Muslim ticket is nothing to be worried about for Nigerians.
Look at him from the perspective of positivity. What he has done in this country, that is what emulation, that made him superior to other candidates. So, our precept here is to propagate the intrinsic values of Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
All the aspirants, you cannot compare Asiwaju with any of them. Everything. Asiwaju has worked and we've seen what he has done. You understand what I'm saying? Asiwaju is not, let me do it, let me try if I can do it. Asiwaju has done a lot of things that is visible.
The cardinal responsibility of politics is the development of the human person. And that is why positive and visionary Nigerians are enthusiastically waiting for the first coming of a renowned reformer, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to imperatively start the fixing of this country come 2023.
Nothing in life should be feared. Things are just meant to be understood.
It is a political judgment and personal opinion anchored on hypocrisy and partisanship to discriminately single out an aspirant as not fit due to old age, bad health, or for whatever personal reasons aimed at vilifying such an aspirant.
Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu not working to be afraid, but working to be awesome.
In a peculiar situation such as ours, mature political marketers should cautiously and persuasively showcase the intrinsic values of their candidates in the areas of international relations, information, finesse, crisis management, and other leadership values. Many people are saying that these are some of the many talents that made Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu a formidable aspirant. So, campaign of calumny, vituperation, and disparagement will take us nowhere if eventually we allow politics of bitterness to excel. It may result in cases of an eye for an eye, or if you taka me, I dabble you, that usually end up in if I don't have it, you won't either.
Coordinators in each local government wọ́n wà níbí apart from state tó yẹ pé mo lè believe pé títà ìbá tó ẹ máa wá ṣe inauguration properly.
Asiwaju is an institution. I am looking at him from the perspectives of new day, renewed strength, and new thought.
courageously focusing on possibilities and opportunities. Ambition is the path to success. Persistence is the vehicle you arrive in.
Asiwaju for president! Asiwaju for
But let me speak to you from the grassroots of those who are still of two minds about Bola Ahmed Tinubu. What the people at the grassroots who are not yet for him are thinking.
The subject on ground today is Asiwaju for president of Nigeria. I don't want to go to any details. I'm no longer a politician. I used to be one, but I stopped being one several years ago. When you are making a name in any group, there will be more singing. Even our Lord Jesus Christ, the man sent by God to redeem mankind into this world, was never loved by anybody. They were throwing stones at him. They were doing all sorts of things against him. But what happened? He emerged victorious at the end of the day. He got me the glory. And I think Asiwaju's story is very similar to the story of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Bola Tinubu is someone that I met together in Chicago. But I want to say one thing. There have been governors, there have been rulers of states, nations, and so on and so forth. This man governed Lagos State for a period of 8 years, and he has been able to maintain the structure of Lagos State and make sure that Lagos State is a better place.
God bless you.
What I would promise this house is that I will bring more people, friends.
Okay, Fashola, it's also in my local government. He made me there, and so on like that. All the senators, all the House of Assembly, House of Reps, if not his own family, go and get your PVC. PVC is best.
Let us take a look at the presidential issues from the perspective of the values that distinguish Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president and a blessing to Nigeria. Although Professor Kolawole Adebayo will deal with the issue, let me give a hint. The analysis of a random survey reveals that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a marketable candidate for the 2023 presidential election. In the same vein, political analysts are saying that there is a growing confidence in the land that Nigerians will vote massively for him as their next president come 2023. So, his marketability is not in doubt. Of course, many Nigerians have accepted the combination of Asiwaju and Shettima as a unique quality of leadership and two good heads. That notwithstanding, we do not want to take the grassroots for granted. So, Nmap is to Asiwaju what good marketers and salesmen are to good products. We are not oblivious of the fact that politics is made up of the assortment of badges. It is a game of number and money. It is the settlement house of partisanship and backstabbing, where upright and fair persons are deprived. We must therefore be careful not to inadvertently modify our principles against propagandist deceit. I have not seen a cent among the Nigerian politicians. The bitter truth is that all the candidates are Nigerian-bred politicians. They also play political rugby together. Notwithstanding this, and based on their antecedents, one of them must have more leadership values than the others. And that is where Bola Ahmed Tinubu has an edge over other candidates. Why? He has demonstrated the values that distinguish him as president and a blessing to Nigeria. Many Nigerians want to know why Bola Ahmed Tinubu's opponents and political detractors are throwing stones of envy, jealousy, and disparagement at him as we march for a better Nigeria and search for a merited occupier of the #1 position come 2023. The reasons are not far-fetched. The #1 position in question is traditionally susceptible to envy, bitter struggle, and dangerous rivalry. So, from experience, a goal-getter is always subjected to envious and dangerous attack at the goalpost. After Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu's emergence as his party's presidential flag bearer, he became more exposed to outspoken criticism, pivoted on propaganda and slander by his political opponents to vilify his presidential aspirations. We know the power of propaganda. We also know that many Nigerians are more propagandists than Joseph Goebbels, the Minister of Propaganda under Adolf Hitler. Destructively, the propaganda campaign against Asiwaju on his health and age spreads to the remotest part of this country. But unfortunately for the propagandists and their beneficiaries, Asiwaju has rendered their effort ineffective and valueless. He has also quintessentially convinced the masses through his indefatigable drive for presidency 2023 that he is able and more qualified for the job than others by all standards. Asiwaju's presidential aspiration is not by accident. Nigeria will need a reformer and an experienced citizen of the world, one who has demonstrated global exposure and vision. Fortunately, Tinubu is a blessing to Nigeria, and from the look of things, he is the president that Nigerians are waiting for.
First, let us look at the entity called Nigeria. Before colonization, it comprises several kingdoms and empires and people who stand as independent nations in their own right. But through the incident of colonization, many of these kingdoms and empires were brought together, and by 1914, January 1914, the northern and southern Nigeria, which used to operate as separate entities, became amalgamated into an entity called Nigeria, and the leadership of the country was then provided as one entity. So the concept of one Nigeria dates back to this period in history. Even though the concept of one Nigeria is desirable and has lasted more than 100 years, there have been challenges because the constitutional makeup and the tribes and ethnic groups that make up the entity called Nigeria continue to focus very highly and very visibly in our national polity and in our national discourse. So there's no way one can talk about the entity called Nigeria without giving due recognition and respect to these different entities. Then, as we approach independence, the ethnicity card, the religious card that tended to become a feature of our politics today was given grind by the political gladiators at that time. So We have the likes of Sardauna of Sokoto, we have Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, we have Nnamdi Azikiwe, Chief Obafemi Awolowo. Many of these gladiators in the political terrain towards independence re-emphasized our different identities as ethnic settings, as nationalities within the entity called Nigeria in their political campaigns. And these issues were top in the nature and manner in which the political structure of Nigeria began to evolve. This, of course, culminated in the Nigerian Civil War in 1967, which eventually redefined the way we begin to interact as a nation. I know that Honorable Temi Ono had also organized previous colloquium where the issue of Nigeria as a nation state had been debated, and the merits and the demerits of the regions versus the unitary system of government that tend to pervade our polity in this day. But beyond that, every political gladiator began to be identified not only as Nigerians, but also as leaders in their own right, in their own nationalities or ethnic nationalities within the nation. And these have refused to disappear despite several attempts to integrate Nigeria as one country, several attempts to bring Nigerians to feel and operate like one entity called Nigeria. And therefore, the debate for self-determination by the different components of the nation had been on the front burner for quite some time. But be that as it may, within the entity called Nigerians, several individuals have identified themselves as strongly nationalistic, as pro-Nigeria as a group. And this is where I begin to contextualize the positioning of Asiwaju in the political environment since 1999. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was the governor of Lagos State from 1999 for 8 years. And in that period, he demonstrated an uncommon nationalistic leadership tendency in the choice of the people he worked with in Lagos. In the setting within which he operated in Lagos, several people who in the ordinary political history of Nigeria would have been told to go back home, unquote, from other states of Nigeria, from other ethnic nationalities in Nigeria, were brought to bear because of their permanent residence in Lagos over a period of time. And we could see the advantage of this. The major advantage of this was that Lagos State, under the leadership of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, was able to tap on the best brains all over the country. And today, when you compare Lagos State to the other 35 states, or even the FCT Abuja, it stands out. And this is a cross of the kind of leadership that Asiwaju had been able to demonstrate that we today can refer to in the recent history of Nigeria. Now, let us look at the key values that Asiwaju demonstrated in this period that makes him stand out. And you can look at the cohort of governors that Nigeria had in 1999, and you will see that he remains an exemplary national leader. First is in strategic planning. The plan that Asiwaju left for Lagos way back since that period of his leadership of Lagos continue to define the developmental pattern of Lagos as a state. And what that has done is had given Lagos a long-term focus in terms of the path of development that Lagos would prefer to be in. Today, the economy of Lagos is greater than many African nations. Without proper strategic planning, without a long-term focus, that will be difficult to achieve. And Asiwaju had demonstrated to us in that period that given a very sound, open-minded, and development-focused leadership at any point in the history of a group of people could develop that nation or that entity, in this case the sub-national entity called Lagos, beyond the realms of his contemporaries. The other structure, the other value that Asiwaju brings to bear is that of determination to succeed. He learns from everything and he grows with everything. At a point in our recent history, Asiwaju became the only opposition to the federal might of the People's Democratic Party in Nigeria, the PDP. At that time, almost all his contemporaries in the opposition then lost their seat because of the political fire play at that time that tended to take ethnicity over and above rationality or logic. Asiwaju demonstrated logic, Asiwaju demonstrated focus, and at that time he remained the only governor of the then opposition party that was returned. And that is a big lesson in terms of focus, in terms of long-term strategic planning, and in terms of a determination to succeed. And it wasn't overly challenged by this. He regrouped, he restructured, and he built a stronger opposition. So from being the Lone Ranger, he rebuilt another opposition that became worthy of the name opposition and therefore became successful 8 years ago in the election of President Muhammadu Buhari as the president of Nigeria, coming from an opposition party, the first in the history of Nigeria. That aspect of history could not be rewritten, could not be unwritten, and the name of Asiwaju was written in gold as a national political strategist, as a leader of reckon, as somebody that understands the fabric of this nation and therefore someone to be reckoned with. Next is his ability to select a good team. The team that he started with in Lagos are still nationally relevant in Nigeria today. They come from all parts of the country, and they are relevant in those parts of the country as well as in the national scope of discussion. So there's nothing you say in Nigeria today that there will not be someone who had been identified by Asiwaju as having the potential to contribute to the growth of this country. And it doesn't matter whether that person totally believes in Asiwaju or not, so long as that person has something to contribute to the development of this nation. So his ability to select good people, to select high quality people, people with character, people who could deliver on our collective mandate, I think is another value that it brings to the table that we shouldn't wish aside in the mudslinging of political jingoism that we have at this moment. So, finally, when you talk of nationalism, you cannot sideline Asiwaju. He is one person who believes in the country called Nigeria. He has demonstrated this in his leadership of Lagos State by showing that if you are resident in any part of this country and you are relevant to the development of that part of this country, then it doesn't matter what your original or your parents' original ethnic background were from, so long as you can contribute to the development of that sector of the country. That we all enjoy the status that some people call no man's land in Lagos is because some people, led by Asiwaju, had made Lagos a home for all. And I think Nigeria, under his leadership, could also be a home for all who are willing to contribute to its development. So, next step, what will Nigeria gain if Asiwaju becomes president? I'm no soothsayer, I'm a professor of agriculture, but I have learned from experience that you can only give what you have. What you do not have, you cannot give. Asiwaju had demonstrated that he could build a strong foundation for developmental turnaround. That if given the opportunity, he has the capacity to build a solid foundation upon which subsequent regimes could then build a solid development plan for Nigeria. So for me, as a person, this is what I look forward to. This is what I believe you would be able to deliver to us as a nation. 2, he will be able to guide us on a path of sustainable development. This is a man who understands the terrain. This is a man who has the ability to focus our resources on a definite part that everyone could relate with. Whether you are in the private sector, whether you are in the public sector, whether you are in the education sector, health sector, anywhere you are in the various developmental sectors of the nation, with an Asiwaju leadership, you will see a clear path that gives you an opportunity to say, I want to contribute to this. Thirdly, his ability to discover and engage key talents, skills, and knowledge to drive national development has been demonstrated, and I think he can do it again. This ability is essential. No president can work alone. So as president, I'm confident that he will be able to put the right peg in the right hole, in the right sectors, and in the various subsections of the country. The executive president of Nigeria, constitutionally and statutorily, is a very powerful position. In the hands of a focused and determined president like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the relevant people, we have over 200 million people in this country. The ability to discern who would contribute to development is a strong skill that Asiwaju is bringing to the table, and that I think Nigeria will benefit a lot from. And finally, it's a new sense of pride in being Nigeria. Today, many residents of Lagos, whether they are of Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, or any of the ethnic minorities in the country, are very proud to claim Lagos as their home and as their base. I believe that with an Asiwaju leadership, this can be repeated, such that as a Nigerian, you could hold your head high and say, I am a Nigerian. We can only achieve that when we have a focused leader like Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has a very clear path that each of us can latch onto and then lead Nigeria out of its present socio-economic circumstances to a better future. Finally, the choice is ours come 2023. And for me, track record is important. I repeat again, no one can give what they do not possess. Asiwaju possesses the strength and the character of a good leader. And for me, that is the only choice come 2023. Thank you very much.
Asiwaju for president! Asiwaju for